Thank you for listening to UBM Talk.
Who are these guys?
That's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
And this is Baseline. It's not with Chris Bass today, however. And for those of you who keep in touch with Chris, and I know a whole lot of you do, I know that you are aware by now that Chris is preparing to have a medical procedure. He's already spelled it out on Facebook and other social media that he's going to have bypass surgery. I spoke with Chris pretty extensively yesterday. And Chris is in good spirits. He is in about the best spirits that anyone can be in that is about to undergo a very serious procedure. But Chris is going to be fine. I know that a whole lot of you out there, and myself included, we have put Chris on our prayer list, and we are lifting Chris up. And I know you're listening, Chris, so I'm going to try and do you proud today. And again, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to come in and sit in for you today. I am Deborah Rowe. Chris and I have been friends for a long, long time. Both of us have worked at a number of stations here in Chicago, myself included, of course. We worked together over at WLS Radio, and Chris has been a friend of mine from day one. We both taught over at Columbia College. And the thing about Chris and I, we never are in the same space at the same time. We're always in the same place at the same time, but never quite in the same space. And here we are again today. I'm in his space. He's not here, but Chris has been most gracious. As you know, I come in and sit in with Chris the second Monday of each and every month, doing a little thing that I call Deborah's World. And he, again, has just been the most gracious of radio hosts and, of course, good friend to allow me to do that. Let me tell you what's coming up on the program today. Later on in the program, I want to know, did you hear anything about this place? And I'm putting quotation marks around that. It's called Silk Road. Don't say what is she saying? No, seriously, Silk Road. Silk Road was a huge case, and what really struck me about it, I'm not going to talk a lot about it right now because we're going to get to it a little bit later in the program, but what really struck me about the Silk Road case is that this was probably the biggest drug case in U.S. history. Yet, I bet you didn't hear about it, or you heard very little about it, because I didn't see anything about it on television. You didn't hear a lot about it on the radio. But people who are into the internet, they went crazy. And I'll get into the details about that, and you will be surprised to learn where Silk Road is. So we'll talk about that. Also, I'm wondering, who will be the lucky lady to wind up on the $10 bill? Because, you know, the Fed said initially that they were going to replace, I believe that's Hamilton, who's on the $20 bill. I was just checking my wallet. I have no $20 bills in there. So I couldn't say for sure right now. But they said we're not going to put a woman on a $20 bill now. Now they said we'll bump her down a denomination. We are going to put a woman on the $10 bill. And not even exactly by herself. So we'll talk about that. And I'd love to know who you would like to see, what woman you would like to see on the $10 bill. And we're going to get into this pretty scary news about Google. And who doesn't love Google? Even if you don't wear like Google glasses, everybody loves Google. You couldn't know half the things you know without Google, right? Okay, I'll speak for myself. I couldn't know half the things I know without Google. But there is a story about Google having ears in our homes. And who knew? Who knew Google was listening to us? I'll give you the details about that, and we'll talk about that also. Kind of have two stories about the South Carolina shootings. I'm going to kick the program off talking about that. After we get through with the first one, we're going to get into an interesting story. And I say interesting, but not in a good way interesting. To me, it's like a silly way interesting. I was on Yahoo earlier today, and I saw a story where Yahoo, I'm not even read the headline right now, but they are making a strong attempt to connect the South Carolina shooter with the Republican Party. And I'm like, what? So I'll get your reaction to that. You might agree with them, or you might feel like I do, that Yahoo, they really failed on that one. But let's kick this program off talking about the South Carolina shooting, and more importantly, about the victims. And I don't think that there is anyone, certainly not in our country, even around the world, that has heard about this story that does not feel, deep sorrow for not just the victims. They have gone on to their rewards, but for the victims' families who are in mourning now. By the way, the number, and I want you to come into the program, give me a call at 312-730-7230, 312-730-7230. These people, the families, the loved ones of the 9 people who were just brutally murdered by this roof guy, the family members are amazing to me. Have you been seen? Have you read? Have you watched anything on television? They had the funeral for one of the victims, and I was looking at some of the video, and I was listening to some comments. Also, when the family members appeared in court, when the shooter, when he had to appear in court, the family members spoke, and there was a recurring theme. And you know what that recurring theme was? It certainly wasn't, we're going to burn this mother down. No. It wasn't, we're going to crack some heads open. No. They didn't say, anybody we see that doesn't look just like us, we're going to punch in the face. They said none of that. What they said, and I quote, was that hate won't win. This is so fresh. They have lost fathers, grandfathers, mothers, siblings, any mix you can think of a loved one. These victims' families have experienced that kind of loss, and they are already out speaking, and they're saying, no, we forgive. I didn't see a quote from every single family member of the victims, but a number of them have already stated, we forgive him. Now, in addition to, they didn't just, say, okay, he made a mistake. He was on something. His heart is black, evil. No, they just stood and they said, we're going to do our part. And our part is to forgive him. And I'm telling you right now, my heart, I was just like, oh my God. You know what I really thought about when I read that so many of the victims' families were saying, no, we don't want to promote hate. We don't want to promote retribution. We do want to forgive. They want justice. Make no mistake about that. But what really struck me is, here we had their family members, these 9 people, amongst others who were there, but these 9 people who were in church, they were in Bible study, studying the Word of God. And that's what people oftentimes say. I know, I go to church. I'm a Christian. I haven't been to church in a while. Okay, I'll admit that. And I've gone to Bible study. And a big part of all of this is not just hearing the Word, but doing what the Word says. And you're thinking, I didn't turn to the PTL club, Deborah. No, it's not about that. This is an actual story. This is what real people are doing right now. When the judge set Roof's bond at $1 million, and that's just for the weapons charge, the judge said he didn't have the authority to set bond for the murder charges, but he's going to hold Roof without bail for those charges. But what was also interesting is that the judge said, I want family members that wish to come up and to speak before the court. I want you to express yourselves. He wants some of them to, or all of them, I'm sure. They're grieving, and he thought this was the thing to do, and I agree with him. I totally do. One of the women who was the mother of Tawanza Saunders. She was killed by Ruth. The mother said, and I quote here, "We welcomed you Wednesday night in our Bible study with open arms." Now she's speaking to Ruth. "Every fiber in my body hurts, and I will never be the same." She went on to say, "As we said in Bible study, we enjoyed you, but may God have mercy on you." And then another family member said that he wanted to thank the court, and he said, she, referring to his family member, "She taught me that we are the family that love built." He was speaking about his sister. He went on to say, "We have to forgive. I pray God on your soul. And I also thank God that I won't be around when your judgment day comes, but may God bless you." So for me, it was just a stark contrast. They are hurt. They are in mourning. But these people, these gracious, humble people, they stood with such dignity. And many of them said, "But I want forgiveness. I'm opening my heart. Whatever happens to you, it happens to you, but I'm not going to carry all of that with me." So I don't know. I had to ask myself that question. Could I do that? Can you imagine you're sitting in Bible study, and if you don't go to church, let's say you were sitting in a coffee shop, or you were sitting in a some public place, and somebody walks in and they look at you and you greet them, and you and your friends kind of look over and smile, and you return to doing whatever you're doing, talking, playing music, playing games, whatever the case may be. And this person sits there and at least pretends that they want to be a part of your group. And maybe an hour or so later, this person opens up with, gun blasts, killing a number of your friends. Could you, just a few days later, could you really say, "You know what, may God bless you"? Several of them said that. "I don't want to be where you probably are going to wind up, but may God have mercy on you." I asked myself that same question. And, they always say it's hard to say what you will do until you are in that situation. And thank God I haven't been in that situation. But we've seen a lot of incidents over the course of a year, or certainly over the course of 2 years. We've seen a lot of incidents where people have been hurt, people have been killed by others, sometimes by the police, sometimes by other people who are civilians. And sometimes the anger just boils up so much, and nobody calls for calm, really. People are almost egging them on. Nobody had to call for calm in this situation. Now, I know that there were people who were just itching to get a lot of stuff started, and little, dust-ups occurred. But I'm talking about the people who were most directly impacted, the people who had lost the most. They were having none of that. They wanted no part of that. At 312-730-7230. So what do you think is the most effective route? Because I'm sure there are people that are saying, "You know what? I don't care what you're saying. There's no way in the world, if that had happened to me, I would have been just like that guy, Michael Brown's stepfather. Remember, he stood up and he said, 'Burn this bitch down.'" He was angry about the outcome of the court's decision. All right, again, we've got our phone here, 312-730-7230. I want to go and say hi to Stephen. And Stephen, thank you so much for calling Urban Broadcast Media. You, sir, are on the air. Hi. Am I not bringing Stephen up?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for calling, Stephen.
Okay. First, I hope Mr. Bass does well tomorrow.
Yes.
He just doesn't know that I've traded places with the surgeon, so
really,
I got something for him.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I traded places with the surgeon, so I'm going to do his surgery for him. He just doesn't realize it yet. Anyway,
as long as you're highly skilled, I guess that'll be okay.
Never said I was skilled. Yeah, I'm practicing. This is OJT.
Hello, OJT.
Anyway,
all right, what's up?
Listen, and Mr. Basin, I've had this discussion before. Mm-hmm. I'm an advocate of owning guns.
Me too.
I'm an advocate of having guns.
Me too.
Real Americans carry guns. Our people are the only race that is taught not to embrace the gun. We are taught we are better than that. If that man was in Texas, he'd never made it out alive.
And you know what, Stephen, that's an interesting point, because it occurred to me that had only one person in that church, and some people say that's sacrilegious, but had one person been allowed to legally carry a gun, because they're in the South,
church.
and had a gun, they could have stopped that.
Yeah. But see, there are churches. There's a church in Arizona, which I'm going to give it to Mr. Pace. Mm-hmm. And the principal's black, and guess what? The staff carry guns. The students, the worst thing you want to do is pull a gun in front of these students, because they are taught to, all of them, to rush you at one time.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, you see,
they hone up. Even during the church services, they are taught to when they give a signal, everybody down, so you do not get shot.
You know, information, education, whatever you want to call it, it really is one of the most effective ways to protect yourself. If we're always telling people guns are bad, don't have anything to do with them, run away, then when things like this happen, people don't really know how to respond. Stephen, I want to thank you so much for your call. I appreciate it. I really, really do. Take good care. Stephen,
have a blessed day, man. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Stephen, he raises an interesting point. And, you don't have to, and I really do believe this, I don't think anyone should be forced to carry a gun. I don't. If you don't like guns, if you don't want a gun, do not touch a gun. Do not carry a gun. Do not apply for your FOI card. Do not seek to get, the concealed and carry approval. Don't do any of that. Stay away from them. But I also believe that law-abiding citizens who wish to carry a gun, after they've done all the things, the little laws that they've put in place, we want your background check, we want this, we want that. Once you've gone through that process, why not? Why shouldn't people be allowed to carry a weapon? Now, nobody's blaming, I'm certainly not blaming those victims there saying, well, they should have had a gun. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all. I want to be real clear. The bad guy was Ruth. The good people were the victims. But I'm simply saying that there are so many instances, and I don't know why the media does this. Like I said, we like Google. Google this. Guns have been used more times than I could ever count to save people, not just when somebody comes into someone's home or someone tries to carjack them. There have been numerous incidents where a gun person has come into a school. Yeah. And it's been in concealed carry states where, I'm thinking of this one incident in particular. I think it was the principal. He ran out to his car, he got his gun, he went back and he stopped the guy. But this goes off into another thing, and we don't even have to go there. But if you want to comment on that, and again, thank you, Stephen, for raising that point. It's a valid point. And by the way, I just got another number. Apparently, I was giving you the insider's number to Urban Broadcast Media, but to call into the program, the number is 773-754-4333. I'm going to give it to you again, 773-754-4333. And we're just talking about the victims' families down in South Carolina who have just done something that I think is highly commendable and very demonstrative of their faith. They are not taking the quick fix route. They are not saying, come on, we know it's a whole lot of people out there, Black Lives Matter, come on, all of y'all join us, meet us down here, we're going to ride heavy on these people. They're not saying any of that. They're calling for peace. And you know what's interesting too? And I cannot remember, was this also in South Carolina or was it in North Carolina? But I think it was in one of the Carolinas when this police officer shot a guy who he had stopped on a traffic stop. And I don't know if they got into a small altercation or what happened, but the guy was walking away, if not running away from the police officer, and the officer unloaded on the victim killing the guy. In that instance, too, I remember his family, and I turned to my husband and I told him, those people are amazing. They stood with their lawyer and they called for calm. They called for calm. And they were willing to give the authorities the benefit that they would conduct a thorough investigation. You remember what state that was in? I cannot recall. I think that was in North Carolina. And it just happened just a couple of months ago, and it was all over the internet. And I believe that officer has lost his job like immediately and he faces charges. But that family, too, said, no, we don't want all of this. They didn't want people flooding down to their town, shutting everything down. And I don't know, is this more a function of a regional thing? Because the families here in South Carolina, and again, I think that other case was in North Carolina, is because of their southern way, that they don't want all this fuss. They are all clearly hurting. They've all suffered a tremendous loss, but they are reacting very differently than the people here in the Midwest by way of Ferguson, Missouri, and even the people out east in Baltimore. It's just very different. I was kind of wondering that. Is that about Southern style, Southern way, Southern hospitality, whatever you want to call it? Is that what that comes from? Or is it because these people have clearly identified themselves as being people of faith? That's probably more the case. It's not so much that they're from the South, because we always say people from the South really know how to treat you well. You come to somebody's home in the South, they're going to feed you. They're going to make you feel right at home. Because I was kind of wondering, was that a part of it? But the more I think about it, I think it's because they clearly identify and confess themselves to be Christians. So we can say all day, anybody can jump up and say, I'm a Christian. And we all know, then you can look around and you can see them doing this and you say, okay, Christian. But when you face a real challenge, when real difficulty confronts you and you can still uphold the tenets of what Christ taught, you're a Christian. You are indeed a Christian. All right, I'm going to keep this one open. You are free to give me a call again at 773-754-4333. If you want to weigh in on that, absolutely do so. But I want to move on because this story is still about that same horrible, horrible story, the shootings in South Carolina. But I'm shuffling my papers here because I think I stuck this story in my stack of stuff. Here we go. All right, now I saw this afternoon on Yahoo and actually made a comment. So if you happen to click over to Yahoo News, and then you see this story, white rights group leader cited by South Carolina shooter donated to Republicans report. Even that headline is all jumbled up, but that's what it reads. White rights group leader cited by South Carolina shooter donated to Republicans report. And I just went through this article and I'm like, okay. Because when you see that story, in the back of your mind, and for a lot of people right away, they just jump to the conclusion, oh, okay, I get it. I thank you, Yahoo. Thank you so much for informing me of this. That shooter wanted Republicans to get in office because he knew that they would further promote his ideas. I'm sure, because actually when you go to the comments section, a lot of people were actually saying that, oh yeah, we should have known. And I was like, what in the world is Yahoo doing? Essentially, the head of a white right group, you can call it white supremacy, that's what I would call it. The head of one of those organizations donated some money to a number of Republican candidates. Okay, the shooter, in his own personal writings, mentioned this leader of the supremacy group. So we're supposed to draw this connection. See, they're all in it together. Hold on. Wait a minute. Not so fast here. That's the problem with this modern day journalism. It really is. it really assumes that we as readers, as consumers of news, are basically stupid. All they have to do, I think a lot of media outlets believe this, all we have to do is push an idea and the gullible sheeple will swallow it whole. I ain't buying it. I'm really, really not. But do you feel, and I felt this way, that was a real leap, and it actually was, to me, it was inexcusable. They did mention that once the candidates found out who this guy was, they'd return the money. But then that also goes into something else altogether. I don't think many candidates spend time, because remember when President Obama ran for president the first time, we saw time and time again that he has raised more money than any other candidate in the history of presidential elections in the United States. Does anybody really believe that he checked on every single donation? I don't think so. All right, I'm Deborah Rowe. I'm sitting in this afternoon for Chris Bass. You're listening to Baseline with Chris Bass. Our number here is 773-754-4333. You're listening to UrbanBroadcastMedia.com.
Now back to the conversation on UBM Talk.
Welcome back. You are listening to UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. This is Baseline with Chris Bass. And I can't even pretend to be Chris Bass. Chris's voice has so much bass in it. It would take like 20, maybe 200 of me speaking at the same time to even attempt to have that much bass in my voice. Chris is out today, the rest of the week. I don't know how much longer Chris will be out, but I do know that he invited me to come back and be with you next Monday for his program, and I will be here. We are all, again, keeping Chris top of mind and in our prayers as he prepares to undergo a medical procedure. He's going to have bypass surgery on tomorrow. So I don't want to get you too upset, Chris. Again, I know you're listening, so just hang in there, buddy. Hang in there with me. Our number here is 773-754-4333. And speaking of the numbers, Chris has a crack staff. I do that sometimes. I blend two words together. I have to be careful what words I say next to each other because I will blend two words together in a minute. But Chris has a crack staff. And during the break, one of the young ladies came in and she says, the name that you were thinking of was Walter Scott. And that happened in Charleston, South Carolina. And you remember I was just saying a couple months ago or so, the police shot a guy in the back. This guy was running away from the police, and he probably was running to save his life because the cop was angry, some altercation. We still don't know all of the story, but we do know this. We saw this on video. He was running away from the cop when he was shot a number of times, and he died from his wounds. So thank you for that information. She also let me know that number I gave you at first, that was not for the public. She didn't say it like that. Actually, she was very, very sweet. She said, I thought you wanted the number so that you could text me while you're doing your show. So thank you. So again, the number that you should be using to call into the program is 773-754-4333. And by the way, I'm Deborah Rowe, longtime friend of Chris Bass. And I have my blog that I would love for you to visit. It's called Deborah's World. And you can access it over at Deborah, DEBORAH, Rowe, ROWE.blogspot.com. DeborahRowe.blogspot.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Deborah's__world. And I'm on Facebook. We have a fan page, Deborah's World fan page. So I've got my media. Yeah, I've got my media. So I'd love to hear from you. And again, come on into the program. Just before the break, though, we were talking about another element that stems out of the South Carolina shootings. And this one, and you know what, this is so interesting to me because, and here's why I wanted to talk about it. If you don't know by now, you better learn. it really does require an individual to check facts, to evaluate, stories that we hear from the media. It wasn't always that way. I went to journalism school, and I remember when my instructor, one in particular I'm thinking about, he always wanted us to know the who, what, when, where, why, and all of that kind of stuff. But he also wanted us to know our facts and check our facts, and don't just check our facts, recheck our facts a couple of times. It's gotten so bad, so many stories today, and it's frustrating as a consumer of news, because I know a lot of people, and I don't blame anybody. I'm not mad at anybody, but I know a lot of people, whatever they see on the nightly news, they take it as gospel. You can't take all that stuff as gospel. Because we just saw Brian Williams, for goodness sake, who was at the helm of NBC's network news for years. He's been toppled. Why? Because he made stuff up. He was just saying stuff. Oh, yeah, we were under heavy gunfire. No, he was sitting over in some hotel enjoying a sandwich and tea. He was not under heavy gunfire. And by the way, congratulations to Lester Holt, who now will head up the nightly news on NBC. He's from Chicago. Well, he's not from Chicago. He's from California, but he spent a lot of time in Chicago. The point is, there have been so many examples of this. And when it oftentimes happens, when we see the media kind of take real flimsy information and try to build a case, we oftentimes see this happen around election time. What's that? Oh, you want another example? Sure, no problem. Remember when we were told repeatedly that President George Bush, the last one, which would be the second one, I think the one they say 43, not 41, when we were told that George W. Bush, he was AWOL. I think that was the National Guard. He was AWOL, that he didn't serve his time. Remember that. CBS News with Dan Rather. They were leading the story. We have news to report. Our sources say that, that was all happening. And people were, taking that in. Why wouldn't we? We are your trusted news source. And it was all a pack of lies. And you're thinking, now, Deborah, it wasn't actually a whole pack of lies, was it? It was actually a whole pack of lies. Because we later found out that Dan Rather's producer, Mary Maple? Mary, whatever her name was, she was deeply entrenched in John Kerry's campaign. And that's fine. We're all Americans. We can vote for who we want, we can work where we want, and we can support whomever we want. Except for when it's your job to present news that is factual, based in facts, objective, and you deliver it to us, the viewer, you've got a responsibility to do just that. And then remember this Dan Rather, he told us, he said, and we've got a letter straight from his file that shows he had missed hundreds of days. He used his influence. And then what happened? You get over into the internet, the blogosphere, and there were bloggers who were like, wait a minute. They were looking at that letter and they said, wait a minute. You couldn't make that kind of marking, this kind of letter, that kind of punctuation, whatever it was, when this letter was supposedly written. That's from a Selectric, pick the number 2, 3, whatever. That kind of typewriter didn't even exist when this letter was supposedly written. So again, I just always just encourage people, don't just trust. They say trust but verify. Sadly, we have to do that because I am of the mind, I truly am, that much of media today, more than reporting and informing, they are really about the business of persuading. That's not supposed to be their job. They're not supposed to persuade us about anything. Simply inform. I'll make my own decision. I'll persuade myself as to what I want to do. And just for the record, it was not just Yahoo. New York Times, they ran with this story. Let's see who else we have here. The Guardian. It's a British paper, publication, I guess. Who else was there? But others have gone with this story. And when you see more than one media outlet report the same story, you basically say, oh my gosh, this happened or that happened. I was watching Malcolm X, the movie with Denzel Washington, the year he was robbed of his Oscars. And Spike was robbed that year too. And he was saying, as Malcolm X, don't trust, verify. And I would really strongly encourage everybody to just do that, evaluate, because, I don't need to be persuaded. All right, let's move on. And again, we keep the phone lines open, and we're keeping these topics open as well. The phone line, just in case you want to get in, and I encourage you to do so. That number is 773-754-4333. And you're listening to Baseline, and Chris Bass is out. I'm Deborah Rowe, and of course, this is urbanbroadcastmedia.com. Now, my dear friend Wendy, today she posted something up on Facebook. This rarely happens to me, but it happened today. She was posting something, and sometimes you're on the internet and you have like 5 windows open. I think I had like 8 windows open at a time because I'm going from this website to that website. I'm looking at this news. I'm looking at this blog, back and forth. I'm still on Facebook, and I'm also playing my game. So I'm doing all of these things. I'm multitasking on the internet. But anyways, Wendy posts up this article, Google Chrome listening into your room shows the importance of privacy defense in depth. Just as that story, she posted the story up because I had just come off of Facebook to go back over on another website. I was on another website because I was reading a story about Google Chrome really allows Google to listen in on your conversations in your home, and they can transmit that audio back to Google. So when I switched back over to Facebook, I jumped. I was like, how did that happen? How did she know I was reading that? It was just a bizarre coincidence. And it did kind of cross my mind. Was I talking to myself? Did Google hear me say I'm very interested in this story? Well, hopefully they didn't. Let me share a little bit of this story with you. And you can find this story in a number of places, but this one happens to come from a website called Privacy Online News. But again, it's in a number of other more broadly reached and read outlets. But it says here, yesterday, news broke that Google has been stealth downloading audio listeners onto every computer that runs Chrome. Stop. I inserted the stop myself. I wanted to stop right there because I know what happens when these kinds of stories come out. And in case you don't know this, I was a talk show host for a whole lot of years and talked about a whole lot of things. And I just know a lot of times when stories like this come out, people call up and say, what are you worried about that for? Only those crazy people that wear tinfoil hats worry about stuff like that. Well, you know what? I don't wear a tinfoil hat, and I am still very concerned. I'm not worried because I'm too cool to worry. No, I just don't worry about things like that because I just like to get the information and try to figure out who else is on board here. Who else wants to kind of stand up and say, well, what can we do to stop this kind of thing from happening? But I digress. All right, so Google has been stealthily downloading audio listeners onto every computer that runs Chrome. And then they are transmitting that audio data back to Google. Now, what is it that Google wants with all of these conversations? It's not as if they don't have pictures of everything we have, Anywhere you go, Google is taking a picture of it because that's what makes the Google Maps and all of that stuff so very cool, right? I'm just wondering, so now what are they going to do with all of this stuff? How many of you are thinking right now, well, you know what, if you're not talking about crime, if you're not talking about terrorism, then you really shouldn't worry about it. Well, yeah, you should. Because in my opinion, in your home, that's the place where you can most expect to have privacy. Unless, of course, you're that guy that was saying a bunch of racist stuff about black basketball players. A producer girl, look at me here. Can you see me later? Come in and tell me that guy's name. The guy, okay. Because, You know, I have a great memory, but sometimes with names, they just go, they just disappear. What's his name again? What's his name? Walter Scott, the older man I'm talking about. That, come in for a minute. The older guy, I said, who thought he was speaking in a private conversation to his girlfriend, and he was saying a whole bunch of racist stuff about basketball players. Oh, Donald Sterling. Thank you. She knows everything. She may be, connected to Google or something. I don't know. But she's right. Donald Sterling. I see I can go in a whole lot of directions because all of this stuff is, like, to me, just crazy. But I feel like if you're in your home, you have the right to expect that whatever you say is being said privately with confidentiality. In other words, there should not be an expectation that bugs, and I'm not talking about anything that you could get rid of with RAID, but you shouldn't expect that somebody has bugged your home, or that your wonderful computer that we all love and certainly cannot live without is spying on you, listening to what you have to say and running back to its creator and telling its creator, well, last night they were arguing over money. Last night he said, I'm tired of you not giving me enough sex. None of that stuff should get out. That's all private information. But obviously it's not as private as we all have thought. Now I'm going to read more to you because this is a pretty interesting article. It goes on to say that effectively, this means that Google had taken itself the right. Notice how they put that there? They took the right. You didn't give them the right. Kudos to them for that phraseology. I like that. So Google had taken itself the right to listen to every conversation in every room that runs Chrome somewhere. And you know what they say? That the average American has about 5 devices that could run Chrome. They don't say 5 devices that could run Chrome, but they say we have 5 basically communication devices between our computers and our phones and our laptops and our tablets. You could have Chrome operating in every room of your house. Like if you leave your phone in your bathroom, they could listen right in there, whatever you might be saying, and I don't even want to think about it. But they could theoretically be listening to you even in your bathroom. So now they've taken the right to listen to you in every room where Chrome is running without any kind of consent from the people eavesdropped on. That's really the critical part of this whole story. You have not given them their consent. No, let me switch that around. You have not given them your consent. They took your consent. I guess maybe they feel, well, you know what? They downloaded Chrome, and then all of that legalese that nobody ever reads, you see that whole page of really tiny letters. What is it in, like 0.8 pica or something? It's so small. You can't really see it. It just looks like a blur of words. And then there's a box, I accept or I do not accept. And everybody always accepts it because if you don't accept it, you can't download whatever you want. So maybe Google said, we actually told them. They didn't read the fine print, and it is fine. They didn't bother to read. In some places, sometimes you download things, it's not just one page. You just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then were you to print that out, you probably have like about 16 pages. Who's going to read that? You're ready to surf. You don't have time to read a bunch of legalese. So Google's, the thing about it is they say that, at least this article here, Privacy Online News, they say that they're eavesdropping on people without their consent. Now, here is an official statement from Google. You ready? Seriously, ready? Here it goes. And I quote, "We can do that." Oh, come on, Google. Yeah, we know you can do that, but you shouldn't be doing that. And the reason I think they could do it, because I haven't read the privacy statement, because I'm like everybody else. I just click, okay, I consent, and I, download. But I'm willing to bet they probably had that statement in there somewhere Once you consent to using Google Chrome, please be advised that we now have control of all aspects of your life. We can listen to what you say. We can watch what you do. If we want to, we can even taste your food before you eat it. I don't know, but apparently people are stunned. And here's the other thing, and I saw this not in this particular article, but in another article I read about this. That was from the Mail, another British tabloid. I like the Brits. Because you know what I like about the British tabloids? When you are online, if you read like the Mail or any of those other British, publication things, they are so extensive and they are just chocked full of photos. I love reading those articles out of the Mail. But anyways, in the article that I read about it from the Mail, they said that Google said that, okay, maybe we'll fix that. But the thing about it is, they said maybe it's some kind of bug, but we don't have any ill intent. There is no ill intent. You must trust us. Oh, I'm supposed to trust you after you told me we can do that? See, I can't trust you because to me, you're saying we can do whatever we want. We are Google. We make glasses. I've never tried those Google glasses, but I've heard that they are pretty cool. They look pretty crazy, but I heard that they are pretty cool. All right, a couple more pieces here from this article. It looked just like another bug report when I started Chromium. It downloads something, followed by strange status information that notably included the lines, microphone, yes, and audio capture allowed, yes. So if you've been downloading anything from Google and suddenly a message pops up, microphone, yes, or audio capture allowed, yes. In other words, they are telling us we are putting a microphone in your face. Well, it's in our computer that your face is in, and we are going to be capturing your audio. So don't get upset when we hear the dirty things you say, okay? And again, it's all without consent. Google's code had downloaded, this guy who wrote the piece. I like these guys. These are real techie type guys. And they're not just techie type guys. These are guys who believe that everyone has a right to privacy on the internet unless they otherwise consent. So he goes on, he says that Google's code had downloaded a black box of code that, according to itself, this is stupid. I'm sorry. According to itself, had turned on the microphone and was actively listening to your room. You can't say, according to me, this is a fact. According to me, that's what the Google device did. According to itself, I've now turned on your microphone. Ready? Start talking. That's not cool. 773-754-4333. That's the number to give me a call. This is Baseline with Chris Bass, and I'm Deborah Rowe filling in for Chris. Just talking about what I feel is earth-shattering news that Google Chrome listens to your room. Like right now, you're listening to me on the internet, and I'm in a room, and I don't know if they run this on Chrome, but conceivably when we turn off the microphone to go into our break, if I kept talking, and my daughter Myra's here, if I just kept talking to Myra, they could still hear what I was saying, even though I had turned off the studio microphone, because they have a microphone that is downloaded on your computer to audio capture. Just a fancy way of saying to listen. And that's not too cool. I'm not going to go on because this article is so long, but I must read you a couple more things from it because I just found it very fascinating. They say a brief explanation of the open source free software philosophy is needed here. And by the way, I am a huge fan of freeware. And I know you have to be careful that you don't download anything that's chock full of viruses, but you have to know the sources to go to, like Audacity. That's a freeware, a free audio editing software that I love. I love freeware. And again, it depends on where you go. They say when you're installing a version of any of these kinds of things into a fresh computer, thousands of really smart people have analyzed every line of human readable source code before that operating system was built into computer executable binary code. In other words, all they're saying is this: please don't even trip, don't even fool yourself into thinking that this was not intended. This has been well written to jump on your computer, tell you that I'm allowing myself to do this. You are using Chrome, and now you're in the Chrome universe. Welcome to my world. That's pretty scary stuff. I was telling my son before I came down here today, I said, you know what this reminds me of? I think it was back around Christmas. There was a story about this guy who had like the new Xbox, and I can't keep up with Xbox. I don't know if it's Xbox 1, 2, 3, whatever, but whatever the latest Xbox was, he was playing one of the Madden football games, and I can't keep up with the Madden games. I don't know if it's I think it must be 2015 because we're in 2015, okay? But the point is, this guy swore at his TV because one of his virtual players did something wrong, and the guy swore at it. Do you know what happened to that guy? His computer sent him a message. You swore. You're going to be fined. You're going to receive a penalty for that. And I was thinking, oh, and everybody they were going crazy on the internet. So the computer his video game box system heard him swear in his house. And it's just proof. They're listening to us all the time. Which, by the way, as an aside, makes me wonder, why haven't they caught those two guys out of the New York prison system? That just popped out of my head somewhere. I'm figuring they see everything, they hear everything, then darn it, why can't they catch those two guys? Why can't they catch them? All right, our number here is 34333. I'm Deborah. Coming up, we're going to talk about the $10 bill. Send me $10 bills. I'm open to it. I am not opposed to that at all. And we're going to talk about who should be the lucky lady who will become the new face of the $10 bill. This is UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. I'm Deborah, in for Chris Bass. Baseline with Chris Bass.
Thank you for listening to UBM Talk.
This is UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. You are listening to Baseline with Chris Bass. And I'm Deborah. I'm sitting in for Chris Bass today. I'll be back again on Monday to fill in for Chris as well. And in case you are not aware, Chris is off because Chris is in preparation, getting prepared right now for a medical procedure that will take place on tomorrow. So we wish Chris all the best, all of the very, very best. All right, our number here is 773-754-4333. Inviting you to come on into the program, have some fun with me, because I'm having a great time, by the way. I'm having a fabulous time. So again, I want to thank Chris so much for inviting me here, and thank you also for listening. Coming up in this hour, and we're done at 6 o'clock, but coming up in this hour, I didn't even mention this, and I had it in my stack of stuff, but I told you I kind of like had everything kind of like mixed up together. So I was straightening it out on the break. And a story that I want to get to in this hour is the male contraceptive. We have to talk about that because the male birth control pill will hit your stores in 2018. So we're going to get to that. And then I'm just curious to know what you know about the underweb. And I'll tell you how I learned about the underweb, and maybe you heard about Silk Road. So we'll just talk a little bit about that because I have a sneaky suspicion that not everybody, or maybe not a whole lot of people at all, know about the underwebs. I feel like you have to say under when you say it like quietly and a little bit with a little sinister sound in your voice when you talk about the underwebs. That should give you a hint about the underwebs. I'll talk about that in a minute. But right now, there's been a lot of discussion about making a change to the $20 bill. Yep, that's right. There was a lot of talk about making change to the $20 bill, but I think just days ago, there was an announcement that, well, $20. Now, hang on, ladies. We'll do this one step at a time. Let's start you off with the $10 bill, okay? So now the talk is that there will be a woman's face put on the $10 bill. That's coming up. So, Andrew Jackson, you're safe right now. You're safe right now. The question a lot of people have, though, is who should be on the new $10 bill? And you know what? That's still a little ways off because I don't think that's going to even come out until 2020. Jack Lew, the Treasury Secretary, I think he says, we're working on it, okay? Keep your pants on, keep your shirts buttoned up. We're working on that. In about 5 years, we'll have a lady. And I'm thinking, what's the problem here? Is it that they have to, because, you know, they don't take all of the old dollars out of circulation. Those stay. But once the Treasury gets them back, they just don't put them back out. They burn them or whatever they do, pack them away. Not that our economy couldn't use a few extra dollars, but they don't put those back out there. But the new $10 bill, and this was really, I have this picture. Oh, my gosh, I wish I had. Actually, I do have my camera on my phone. I should just put my video on and then just upload it on my website so you can see it. But I'll describe it anyways. There's this picture. It's a life-size picture of a $10 bill. And it is actually, the coloring is just flawless. It looks exactly like a real $10 bill. So much so, I was kind of thinking about cutting it out and putting it in my wallet. But then I couldn't do that because the part where the face goes, it's blank. Well, it's not really blank. They have a picture of Hamilton because he's on the $10 bill. He's like moved over to the side, and more than half of the oval is vacant. There's just room to put somebody else's picture there. So in other words, they're trying to say, we've got to select a woman that we can put on the $10 bill. So at 773-754-4333, who do you think the lucky girl should be? Who do you think, what woman would you like to see? Or do you think is deserving of such an honor to be on the $10 bill? Which, by the way, doesn't have as much value as it used to. We all know that. If you tried walking into a Family Dollar store, and why does the name say dollar when it really should be like Family $10 store? Because if you go in there with $10, don't think you're going to walk out with like 10 things. You may have to go into your purse and, get another $10 out. My point is, the value of all this money is just dwindling constantly. But I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking now, what woman really does deserve that honor? And I had some thoughts, and I still have some thoughts about it. And again, I'd love to know who you think is deserving of that honor to be placed on a $10 bill. Because then, come 2020, when you go to the store or when you go and cash your check or whatever the case may be, you're going to look at all that money in your hands, and then you're going to see the one woman. She'll be standing there, and you'll be so proud. We finally have a woman on the $10 bill. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm sure, and it would be cool. It really would be if they would put it out to a vote for, by the American people. Let the American people vote on who they think the next woman should be. Not next woman, the first woman. And they won't do that. What they're going to do, they're going to look and they're going to go to some women's organization. And if they go to Now, they'll say, put Margaret Sanger on there. And then the sad part about it, I always have to turn everything. I always take a turn for the ugly. I don't mean to do this all the time, but sometimes I just can't help myself. They'll put Margaret Sanger on it, and then people will be like, oh, yeah. She's like the person that helped us get Planned Parenthood all over the country. And then it'll be a few of us scratching our heads. So, that's a good idea because she was also a eugenicist. Yeah, she was. So that's not a woman that I would like to see on the $10 bill. No Margaret Sanger. No, absolutely not. And since we're at who shouldn't be on the $10 bill, let me put this out there right now, just in case I am surprised and the Treasury Department does say, you know what? we're going to kind of do like an American Idol to make our decision. We're going to bring up some women, and we're going to ask these women to show us what they've got. And whoever America votes for, who receives the most votes, she's going to become the new face of the $10 bill. Kind of like the Tyra Banks thing. She's the new face, the new America's top model. None of that mess. But I'm not trying to be funny. The point I'm trying to make is I'm a little bit worried that if we do leave it up to the average American, you know whose face will wind up on the $10 bill? Come on, you know who it is. It'll be Kim Kardashian. And then that $10 won't be worth a darn. That's what'll happen. Or it'll be Khloe. It'll be one of those K-girls, one of the Kardashians, because they're very, very popular. And then they could go and take to their social media, and then they could tweet out, come on, I'm in a race for my face to be on the $10 bill. Support me, vote for me. And they have like huge numbers of followers. And then Americans will say, yeah, okay, yeah, she's right. We love you, Kim. And next thing we know, they'd say, well, America has spoken. And we'd have a Kardashian on the $10 bill, and that would not be cool. But if we would go down the road that I think we should go down, we would take a look at the many, I could say that for like 5 more minutes, many women who have done incredible things in our nation to advance our nation as a whole, to advance women, to advance blacks, whatever the case may be. And so you're saying to yourself, well, why would we put someone on who is only advanced blacks? Because that would mean that person has played an integral role in bringing all Americans on the same footing. And that's a good thing. It really, really is. I was thinking, now Susan B. Anthony, who was just an incredible woman. I mean, the woman was an abolitionist. The woman, she believed in education reform. The woman voting for women, on and on and on. She was an incredible woman. But she already is on a coin. And I know that's not a dollar, but she still is on U.S. currency. Though the Susan B. Anthony coin really didn't do so well now that I think about it. I don't even know if they still mint those things. Because at first, everybody was trying to, save a Susan B. Anthony coin. It's going to be worth something someday, worth more than the dollar that it was. Or was that a 50-cent piece? Can't even remember what it was worth. I think the Susan B. Anthony coin was $1. Now nobody cares. Nobody says, oh, my God, go to the bank. Can I please have a Susan B. Anthony? Nobody says that because nobody cares. So I guess an argument could be made if you really just wanted to fight for it. We did not treat Susan B. Anthony very fairly. She deserves another shot at it. She deserves to be placed on the $10 bill. And that's an idea. I'm not against that. I was also thinking about Ida B. Wells. I'm serious. I'm thinking about Ida B. Wells. Because she did a whole lot. I mean, not just the projects. That was not her doing. Those projects were named after her. They're gone now. But in terms of being a journalist, in terms of fighting for the end of slavery, and she was one of the founding members of the NAACP, and, working and all of these kinds of things. She was an incredible woman that helped to make our nation better. So I would definitely vote for Ida B. Wells. I really would. Any thoughts in terms of who you would like to see? Give me a call at 773-754-4333. Or, and there's an or to this, or you could say, I don't know who should be on, but I do know who should not be on. Because our world is kind of turning, topsy-turvy. Things are starting to go a little bit screwy. Because last month we looked up and our, famed and much glorified all-American athlete, the greatest athlete in the world, that was once his title, Bruce Jenner, he says, no, now I'm Caitlyn. So that turned things around. That's kind of topsy-turvy. And then we had Rachel, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I want to do it phonetically, Dolezal, but whenever I hear someone on TV pronounce it, one of the anchors, it sounds like they're saying something French. I don't know what they're saying, but I always look down at, at my computer screen. That's not how you spell that. So you know who I'm talking about, Rachel. I'm talking about how things are just turning topsy-turvy. Here we have Rachel. She was born a white lady. And then Rachel says, you know what? But I'm really black. And I personally don't have a problem with that. I think Rachel can be whoever she wants. I do have one friend who's listening right now. And just by the fact that I said that, she's now probably throwing her computer on the floor. But I don't have a problem with that. So because the world is becoming so topsy-turvy and things that you would not expect, like David Letterman walking away, they are starting to happen, it's possible that we could wind up with a former celebrity on the $10 bill. I say former because they would never do a current celebrity because I think the person has to be deceased. Like when you name a public building, I don't think the person can still be living. I think they have to be deceased. So it's possible that we could wind up with a former celebrity, which if we had to go that route, I would love to see a Betty Davis on the $10 bill. Can you imagine those eyes just looking at you every time you went in your wallet, the Betty Davis eyes just staring at you? It would make you think more about spending that dollar or that $10. You would kind of think, well, maybe I don't need to spend that right now. Maybe I really, really don't need that large coffee. And for me, again, I already said who I absolutely don't want. It's one more I don't want to see, and she's still living. And she keeps living and looking as if, well, I won't go there, but I was going to say Madonna. I could have said a lot of things, but this is not what this show is about, being ugly. All right, so we're going to keep this one on the table as well, 773-754-4333. Now, this gives me, I think, a nice segue because we're talking about women. And when you talk about women, quite naturally, you're going to move over and talk about men. Here's an article I saw. Male contraception is on its way, and it will be a complete game changer. That's what the article says. Estimated to hit the market around 2018. Vasogel, V-A-S-A-G-E-L, Vasogel, is a non-hormonal male contraceptive owned by the medical research organization Parsemus Foundation. Oh, that could be Parsemus Foundation. I think it's Parsemus Foundation. And guess what? It will be the first FDA-approved male contraceptive since the condom. That's my own drum roll there. Well, I'm going to read how it works, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about this. All right, Vasogel is essentially a polymer that is injected into a man's sperm-carrying tubes, accessible through the scrotum. All right, close your ears, Myra. My daughter is in here. Now, she's an adult, but still. The Telegraph reports, it works by blocking sperm and is expected to be reversible through a second injection that dissolves the polymer. Another advantage of Vasogel is that while it blocks the sperm, other fluids can still pass through. This should reduce any risk of pain due to back pressure, an occasional issue with vasectomies. See how this thing works? They've already explored all of the things that could go wrong. They've already figured out, well, we can't do this because when men go to get a vasectomy, their backs hurt. And we can't have their backs hurting. So we're going to make sure that this new pill will do exactly what it's supposed to do, but we'll also make it available so that they could take something else and it'll dissolve the effects and they'll be back to normal. But when it comes to women, now I haven't had any such procedure, but I've talked to other women, and it's not so easy. I don't think that all of the thought went into, well, now this might hurt her, and you know what? Her back could hurt, or some other part of her body might hurt. Let's see if we can stop that. Let's see if we can fix that. No. And I'm willing to bet, and I don't know this, I don't know it, but I'm willing to bet we're not going to see all of the warnings on the package that says could cause cancer, may make premature this, that, and the other, could cause this, that, and the other. No, it's just going to say use safely, has been effectively and very thoroughly tested. You are safe. Then when you look at the women's birth control, Warning, if you smoke, if you're over the age of 40, if you're under this age, if you happen to be overweight, if you happen to have had this, that, or the other, you could be at risk for cancer. It's never fair. Don't even stress yourself out about it. It's just never fair. It's just the way it goes. Now, knowing what we know, and this is so crazy, the picture that goes with this article, there's this guy, and he's standing there, and he has a pill. It's not a blue pill. He has a little white pill in his hand, and he has a glass of water in his other hand. And he's looking as if he's just terrified of taking this pill. His mouth is open. His eyes are like, oh, my God. And I'm just thinking, I'm laughing to myself. Women have been popping birth control pills forever and a day. So many people, as soon as their girls, enter puberty, they run and drag them over to the birth control clinic. And here a guy, big old strapping man, he has one pill in his hand and he's like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. I tell you, it's nothing fair about it. That's just life. It's just the way things go. This article goes on to say this could also make, and they mean the fact that it'll still allow fluid to flow freely to reduce any risk for back pain for the gentleman. This could also make Vasogel a bestseller among men seeking a permanent contraception option. It is much less invasive than a vasectomy, the method millions of men commit to every year, and it can be easily reversed. Now, see, here we go again. I know I don't have to point out the obvious, but I'm going to do it anyways. Men can walk in, snip, snip, sit over there for 15 minutes, get up and go home. Women walk in, all right, they what are those nurses, surgical nurses, they're standing by. Yes, doctor, I'm ready. You've got the oxygen ready. Yes, doctor, you've got this tool. Yes, doctor. All right, proceed, everybody. Ready, set. And the poor woman, she's wheeled in somewhere and she sits there. You're not going home, sister. And when you get ready to go home, you better have someone to drive you. It's not fair. Nobody ever says it was going to be. It's just not fair. All right. There will also be non-hormonal pill options for the guy. You don't want to take hormones? Listen, fella, we're not going to mess with you like that. We're not going to pack your body up full of these added hormones. No way. That's for the girls. Not for you, guy. We're going to give you a couple of options here. So that is this other pill, Gendarusa. Why do they always have to come up with crazy names for medicine? Gendarusa is a pill that will prevent the sperm's ability to fertilize an egg. It has gone through phase 2 of the human trials in Indonesia, which might account for the recent population explosion, huh? No. Another pill, this one from the U.S., is an anti-epin agent that targets sperm's ability to swim. So here we go. Here we go. You've got scientists all over the country fast at work, trying to figure out how many methods can we come up with to make a contraceptive pill for guys. We need as many options as we can possibly come up with. We'll figure out a way to stop the sperm from swimming. Okay, and you work on a way to stop the sperm from fertilizing an egg, okay? Yeah, and then you work on a way so that the guy doesn't have to get a whole lot of extra hormones, okay? We'll all get this right. So the guys, they'll be comfortable, okay? And then what's so crazy about all of that, this is the really, really crazy part. The guy's going to forget to take the pill. You know that's going to happen. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever later, the girl comes back, I'm pregnant. You said you took the pill. You promised you took the pill. I forgot. I forgot. You gave me chicken wings. I forgot. And you know that's going to happen. I don't know. I'm well beyond that stage of life. It has no interest of me. I don't have to worry about any of that. And I'm proud to say that. Some women would be ashamed. I'm not going to tell my age. I'm past all of that. But for women who are still in the childbearing years, or maybe you have a daughter that's in the childbearing years, would you really trust a man to be responsible for birth control by taking a pill? And again, it'll be in your stores in just about 3 years from now. And of course, as I said earlier, but they'll have all sorts of pills. You can buy this kind, or you can buy that kind, or you can get this, or you can get that. And you know what they should also sell? They should sell reminders. And for the low, low cost of just $5.99 extra, we'll sell you this pill that'll remind you to take your pill. I don't know. If I were still in that phase of life, I would not trust a man. I just wouldn't. And I'm sorry, I know my husband's listening. Forgive me, Jimmy. But I don't feel that you can trust a guy to take a birth control pill. Not even that he would just be absolutely forgetful. What if he's in a strange mood? What if you've talked about no more kids, we're good, yeah, we're good, we're fine. And then that night he looks at you and he says, oh God, she's such a great mom. Oh, she's such a wonderful woman. I ain't taking this pill. I ain't doing it. It's not going to happen. We deserve another baby. And then here she is. Oh, he's so wonderful. He's giving me relief. I don't have to take the pill anymore. Oh, he's so wonderful. You would trust a man to do that? I don't think so. 773-754-4333. That's the number. Give me a call. Tell me what you think about this new male contraceptive pill that has, it's the only one that's been approved by the FDA. So we don't have to wonder whether it's going to come to the market. It's a-coming. It really, really is. You are listening to Baseline with Chris Bass. Chris is off. We'll be off next week as well. Beyond that, I don't know, when Chris will be coming back, but he's really engaged in the internet. So probably sometime today or sometime next week, he may be able to tell you when he'll be back. But again, we're keeping Chris in our prayers as he prepares to have his medical procedure done on tomorrow. Coming back, the phone line again is 773-754-4333. I'm taking your calls on this, and we're also going to get into the underwebs. I'm Deborah Rowe. You are listening to urbanbroadcastmedia.com.
Now back to the conversation on UBM Talk.
With Chris Bass. I'm Deborah Rowe in today for Chris Bass, and this is urbanbroadcastmedia.com. Our number here is 773-754-4333, 773-754-4333, and I would love to invite you to come over and visit me on my blog. You can visit Deborah's World at deborahrowe.blogspot.com. And it's just a place where I talk about, just a whole bunch of things that interest me. And, my interests are broad. I like a little everything. I like to talk about politics, but I also like to talk about entertainment and science and current events and lifestyle. So I just blog about those things and ask for you to share your views and your comments. Also, on Deborah's World, we have a radio page, and on that page you'll find the podcast for Deborah's World on the radio, because I'm here at Urban Broadcast Media during the Chris Bass Show the second Monday of every month. I call it a show within a show because I'm here during Baseline with Chris Bass. So again, visit me over at Deborah's World, deborahrowe.blogspot.com. Also, you can see me, I say see me, but you can also visit me over at Twitter at it's at, see, I get confused sometimes. There's so many addresses that you have to have and know in today's, broad media world, but at Deborah's _ world. That's it. At Twitter. That's it. Okay. In this last 20 minutes or so, I do want to get into the underwebs. I want to talk about that, and then I just kind of cap things off talking a bit about Empire, because I've never seen Empire, and I want to talk about that. So how are you going to talk about it? You haven't seen it. I know how to talk about it. I'll tell you what I do watch, so we'll talk about that. But what do you know about the underweb? Not underwear, the underweb. Some people call it the dark web. Some people call it the dark nets. Let me tell you something. I first learned about the underweb a little over a year ago when I was teaching over at Columbia College. For our final project, 'cause my students, they would have to do, a final project, which would be they'd have to do a 20-minute talk show. And that one, that last project, we took that very seriously. I wanted them to execute everything that they had learned throughout the semester and employ it in their last program. So this one nice young man, I always want to say kid, but they're young adults, but this one guy, he went into the studio and, he did everything you're supposed to do. He set his topic up, he identified himself, on and on and on. And when I was listening, because I'm critiquing, he started talking about the dark web, the underwebs. And I was starting to get a little bit ticked off because I'm thinking, I told them this is not a joke session. During the season, the semester, they could talk about whatever they want because a lot of, people want to be funny and all of this kind of stuff. And it's cool because you really are learning how to be a talk show host. So I'm always fine with that. But that last show, that final project, this is the big deal. And I'm thinking, why would he go in there and talk about some crazy stuff like the underweb? Because the way he explained it, it was like this vast land of internet that existed under the internet. Didn't make any sense to me. So when he comes out, I'm kind of, strumming my fingers on the desk. And I said, you know what? Now, that was good. Your execution was fine. I liked your delivery and all of that, how you set the thing up. But I told you we'd have to pick some serious topics here and approach them. No, I'm really serious. I'm real serious. And then my most serious student, it was another student who never laughed at anything, who always scored an A on everything, who was never late. He turned around and he said, yeah, that's real. Yeah, that really exists. I'm like, what? So then this turned into this big discussion. The bottom line is this. Here's what I know about the underwebs. I know this. I won't say underwebs again, but here's what I know about it. Apparently, we only use 4% of the internet. Yeah, like when we visit like urban broadcast media or you go and look on YouTube or whatever, all of these sites in their totality only represent about 4% of the internet. That in itself was mind-boggling. So you're telling me, this is what I said to him, you're telling me that there's another 96% of the web that we know nothing about? And the guys, because my class was mostly guys, a couple of girls, they were like, yeah, it's out there. But what really got me, the kid that did the show, his final project, and I'm not kidding you, he was as serious as I've ever seen a kid. He said, but you know what? When I went there, it was really scary. I was really afraid. I'm thinking like, what? You're at home. You're on your computer. And the other kids, they were like, yeah, it's scary down there. It's really scary. So the bottom line is this. There's 96% of the internet that we never see, we never look at, and there's a whole lot of activity that goes on the underwebs. And what kind of activity goes on there? Well, I pulled this article. I already know what goes on, but the headline kind of caps it all together. Inside the underweb, home to stolen credit cards, pedophiles, hitmen, drug dealers. Well, that's one aspect of it, and it's apparently quite a bit of it. But there are also people who are on the underwebs who are, political dissidents. There are people who have different views, and sometimes it's a lot of political stuff, but it's also people who have causes. There are people who are selling legitimate things. Maybe they're selling jewelry, handmade jewelry. Maybe they're selling cars. The significance of the underwebs is that you can't access it unless you go through something that they call like a Tor, T-O-R. And some of you are far more internet savvy than I. But from what I understand, when you use a Tor or go through this Tor system, browser, whatever you want to call it, to access the underwebs, it does something that is critical, that clearly distinguishes it from our regular internet. You know what happens? You become completely anonymous. Completely. Nobody can track you. They have no way of finding out who typed that, who posted that. Because, like on our regular internet, you think you're being private, but somebody just gets a hold of your IP address and they immediately can track you down. They can find out who you are. I remember once, this was crazy. On this one message board, somebody that I know would get into these heated debates with somebody else that they did not know, and I didn't know either. So one day, this one woman, she joins in the conversation, and she made a total fool out of this other person that the person I know was in battle with. So it doesn't get more complicated than that. Let me just put it this way. The guy that got really beat up on by the woman that joined the conversation, this guy got a hold of the woman's IP address. He put her home address up. He put her name up. He was outraged because he had been defeated on the internet. That was just so wimpish of him. I always hated that. Just the idea, okay, you lose a debate, big damn deal. And he just retaliated. That's the difference between being on the underwebs. There's just no way anybody could track you because you're not using any of the browsers that we know. None of that stuff is there. You use a Tor system, which apparently is this web of encrypted systems that just can't be broken. And you're thinking now, oh yeah, it can be broken. The government can break it. Actually, they can't. The biggest story to come out of the underwebs was the Silk Road story. I'm not going to go into that. If you want to really learn about it, and it's a fascinating story. I mentioned it actually at the top of the show. It's just basically this massive drug operation, illegal drug operation, that was being carried out on the underwebs. Because again, in addition to legitimate things, there's a whole lot of illegitimate activity, illicit activity that occurs on the underwebs. Well, the Silk Road was started by this guy, I almost had his name, Ross Ulrich. That's his name, Ross Ulrich. And this guy was making, I don't know, a ton of money. Well, Ross Ulrich actually was sentenced. He was recently sentenced, like within the last week, for the Silk Road case. And the judge sentenced him to 2 life sentences, 2 life terms in prison. I don't know how that happens. So you die, you've become a Christian in prison, I guess, and they believe one day you're going to be risen again, and, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. But the point of it is he gave him 2 life sentences, and he fined him $186 million. Why? Because the judge said you were a part, it wasn't really so much because of the illicit drugs, not because of the drug dealing. Drug dealers are everywhere. We all know that. But because he had mastered this operation on the underwebs. And I've heard a lot of discussion. I've read a lot about it. They said he had just impeccable customer service, and the quality of drugs was far superior than anything you can find anywhere, and people could freely go. And, you've heard the term Bitcoin. Well, that's the monetary source that they use in the underworld, the underwebs, Bitcoin. So not to get mired down in any of this, let me just really get to the point I wanted to talk about. Here we have this massive, massive system on our internet that we really could access if we had this Tor browser, and you get all of this privacy, because we were talking about privacy earlier. Nobody can identify you on the underwebs. That's why you have the hitmen and the pornographers and the people that deal in stolen credit cards and the drug dealers, and all of those people are there. But it's also people who fear for their safety from other countries, who are standing up against Russia, who are standing up against some South American dictator. They're all there. It's also people who are tired of paying the government taxes for things that they sell, things that they work hard for. They say, I'm not going to sell it on eBay. Forget eBay. The government will track me down and I'll have to pay all of these taxes. I'm going to go to the underweb and I'll have to pay nobody because nobody knows that I'm doing this. Would you be interested in going on the underwebs? Because when I heard that all of those people were down there, and I'm talking about hitmen and pedophiles and the credit card thieves and all that kind of stuff. I'm thinking, I don't want to go there. I kind of see now why my former student said, I was so afraid. It's dark. It's a dark and scary place. It's a place that you don't go to a lot. And then the real serious student of mine said, well, here's the thing about it. When you go to the underweb, you've got to have like a serious virus program on. Now, some guy said, no, you don't. You don't really need that. He said, well, I wouldn't go in there without it. But, you know, I'm thinking, and I've read this already. I've read about this a couple months ago. The government is not feeling very good about the underwebs for a couple of reasons. One is because of stuff like Silk Road. And I think there are like 4 or 5 other operations like Silk Road that are in existence down there. And you're thinking, well, if the government can't identify you, how did they catch Ross Ulrich? How did they stop Silk Road? Well, somebody went down there, and they know all kinds of bad things are going on down there, and posed, it was a federal agent, posed as, yeah, I'd like to score some drugs. Yeah, I heard you got like the best drugs. And deals were set up. And I think this went on for like a year. So they were building their case. You've got to be careful. I mean, crooks are down there. But the point is, what I think bothers the government so much, and let me be real clear, I'm not one of these, I hate the government types, but it's just what I think. I think what the government doesn't like is that people are completely anonymous. They can say whatever they want to say, and quite frankly, they can do whatever they want to do. And this whole Bitcoin thing is also a problem because you've got people who are engaging in financial transactions, and they're not giving the government their fair share. Bitcoin is a currency unto itself. And there is another type of currency that I can't even recall what it is, but people use that like not even just on the internet. They've established their own currency. It all sounds crazy until you realize there are so many people who are doing this. And it was like another world to me. I'd never heard of it. Now, to be frank, I still have not gone to the underwebs. And I probably will continue to say underwebs until I actually go. But it just sounds a little bit scary on the one hand. But on the other hand, it's pretty intriguing to me that there actually is a place on the internet where no one can identify you, that there is total anonymity, that you can engage and speak. Because you know what, let's be honest here. I'm going to just be real honest here. We have gotten so bad as a society. Things are so polarized now that if you say something that is not politically correct, or if you say something that is politically correct and somebody doesn't like it, people get so nasty today. People get so vicious. If you disagree, I mean, I'm just wondering, well, how do we get to this point? Well, and in the underwebs, you can say that stuff and nobody can come after you. And that does happen. So maybe next week when we get together, maybe, I don't know, maybe I will have taken a trip down to the underwebs. And that's if I can get all this torrent stuff, under control there. But I don't want to leave until I talk a little bit about Empire. The reason I want to talk about Empire because I was visiting my father, who, by the way, had to go to the hospital, and now he's in. It's today. They started today with his therapy. And on his television, they had, I don't know if it was a commercial for it, but it seemed longer than a commercial. It was for Empire. And I looked up and I said to myself, it's amazing to me. I've never seen Empire. And then, of course, today when I'm doing my internet surfing, I ran across an article that said that Taraji P. Henson had checked into a hospital because she was suffering from exhaustion. And she said, don't worry about it, I'm one tough cookie. Well, I understood the reference because I know she plays Cookie on Empire. And she had a picture of herself with an IV in her arm. And, of course, her fans, her devoted fans, they were wishing her well. which is what people should do. But I was thinking, oh, Taraji, I love you. I've seen so many movies where she's been in. I don't know if I've seen them all, but most of them. And she always delivers for me of just a wonderful performance. I love Terrence Howard. I don't think that I would probably like him as a person because he seems like he's always mad at somebody or hitting someone. So I would not like that, but I love his acting. So then I was saying, but it's so weird. Two people who I actually do like, genuinely like their work. I have not seen Empire. And I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't know if they're trying to do a Motown story or, I think it's some sort of hip hop label, and I don't worry about it. But whenever I mention this, like if somebody's saying, because it's a very popular show, so this comes up a lot. Girl, did you see Empire? Oh my God, I can't wait till Empire starts. That kind of thing. And then people are looking around and making their comments. And then when I say, oh, I've never seen that show before. What? You haven't seen Empire? What? As if, I've done something really major. Actually, I've done nothing towards Empire. It's just, I don't know if it's the time that it comes on or what. Just haven't had the time. Now, having said that, but what I do watch is Power. That is my show. Now, they've just started their season. They're in season number 2. And even though it's my show, I've only seen one episode, and I think they're already on like the 3rd or 4th episode. And I tried to watch like the 2nd episode, but I was on my computer, and it didn't draw me away from my computer. So I'm just want Power to stay strong. Power, keep the action going. The script is tight. I love the lead actor. I love the supporting actors, and then of course 50 Cent, big and hulking and very dirty. So I don't know if you watch Power. Or if you watch Empire, maybe am I missing something? Or am I doing fine by just sticking with Power? I'd be curious to know your thoughts about that. 773-754-4333. That's 773-754-4333. We only have a couple minutes anyways, but if you called, I'd put you on just the same. Which, let me get this in here too. It's funny because we really have entered what I think is a new era of television. And by that I mean we've got 2 really, really top shows. Well, I don't know if Power really is a top show, but in my mind, it's one of the top shows. But make no mistake about it, Empire is one of the top shows. And they both are shows that were, if not created, certainly developed by blacks. And they have majority black cast. And you don't see that a lot. You may have seen it in the realm of comedy, but it's extremely rare. This is something that is extremely rare to see it when it comes to drama. That typically does not happen. And what I love about it is that both of the shows are doing extremely well. And that means that they are appealing to audiences of all types. And that to me is really when you know that you have really developed something, when you can't just say, oh, this show is just for blacks, or this show would have no interest for blacks, or this show whites would not find it interesting. Everybody seems to enjoy Empire. Well, everybody except me. I haven't seen it yet, but I may check it out. But it just always seems like it's just too much drama. And, you've got your shows. I've got my shows. I've got my Walking Dead, okay? I've got my Better Call Saul, and I had a couple of other shows, but they've concluded now. I'm leery about adding another show because people tell me you really should watch Orange is the New Black, and I've never seen that. And I'm always thinking, but I don't want to be bogged down. I don't want to be held responsible for keeping up with all of these shows. And then, of course, the alternative is to then do the binge watching. But then who wants to tie up 2 or 3 weekends just watching all the shows you need to watch? I don't want to do that. So I work this way. I pick myself 1 or 2 good shows that I'm going to be committed to. And then, of course, there's a downside to that, too. Because if you're only following like 2 shows, you're always hungry. You're always waiting for the next episode. You're always wondering, oh God, I hope that they hurry up and bring the season back. Like they're not going to break the schedule just because you want to see the show. Or I find myself, I'm on demand and I'm watching the same episodes of Walking Dead over and over and over again. That's what happens. So next Monday, again, like I said, I'll be back, and I see Cassy. Okay, I got to get her in. I know we're right up on the clock, but she said, I want to get in here. So let's bring up this caller. Can we get her up, producer, or no? She says we can. Good. Hey, Tanya, you're on the air. Or is she on hold? All right, she said we can't get her in. We don't have enough time. That's the way it works sometimes. I'm used to live radio. I know how it works. I want to tell you, I'll be back Monday at 4 o'clock till 6. I'll be sitting in again for Chris Bass. And Chris, we talked yesterday. You're in my prayers. You're in the prayers of your listeners. I do want to thank everybody on Chris's team. He has a very solid staff. So thank you so much, guys. You were wonderful. Thank you so much for listening. And again, visit me over at Deborah's World. You can go to deborahrowe.blogspot.com or visit my fan page, Deborah Rowe. No, it's not. It's Deborah's World at Facebook. I've had a blast. Thank you so much for having me. Again, this is Baseline with Chris Bass on UrbanBroadcastMedia.com.